Okay, so today we will do Greek food. And this is again another thing that is great when you're doing travel to document the food that you will eat, definitely. But with food illustration, again, with respect to traveling, I recommend even when you're practicing it, um, to keep a time limit. Because, say, for example, obviously at home, right now, everyone's eaten, you're now sitting for class, very comfortable, there's no rush. So you'll end up illustrating for 2 hours and you'll make one illustration for 2 hours. But when you're traveling, you might get about 5 minutes because assuming you're going to be traveling with family, friends, nobody's going to wait for you to finish your illustration. So you'll order food and, or maybe you'll order your drinks earlier. So you'll have the drinks to illustrate in the time that your food arrives. And the moment the food arrives, everyone is ready to bounce on the food. So you have to be very clever and very quick about this. And we are going to try and simulate the same conditions. So we are going to make quick illustrations of the food. We are not going to bother with making very realistic illustrations. We are going to quickly put in some color, some shapes, and try to do each of these bits in an aggregate of about 5 to 10 minutes each. So the strategy that I use when I travel is to make the illustration, take a picture of just the basic illustration or colors with the food. That can take about 10 minutes. And then I take a picture from where I have seen the food. And then we eat the food, I'll keep my picture away. And then I will finish the picture later in the evening or something when I'm back in my room. That's one way to go about it. The second is you can always fill up your plate and you can wait 10 minutes and make your painting with your or 10 or 20 minutes and make a display of your plate because it's your sacrifice. Then nobody else can stop you. And that can take longer. You finish it right there, click a picture with what you have eaten, and then obviously that your picture is done right then and there. So when travel illustration, when you're making food pictures is very different from making food illustrations uh, for, say, a recipe book. They're not the same. So you should not use that same method for illustrating when travel. So the attitude would be slightly different, which means that you need to be forgiving. Your lines may be a little odd, your shapes will be odd, but allow for that to happen. It's not so much of a big deal. So we will be enjoying more the splatter of color and making the whole page look very interesting. I'm just going to check. Isha, is this Isha?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. So Isha, welcome to the class. If
Yeah,
you
thank
have
you,
any
ma'am.
If you have any questions, feel free to ask. And at any point, you could just raise a hand or something, then I'm alerted. Otherwise, most of the time, I'm looking down and working on it. And
Okay.
any question is welcome. You don't have to feel as if, how can I ask? And then wait till the end of the class to ask all your doubts in one go. Everyone is used to it. Everyone has done it when they started anew. So feel comfortable, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so let me share the pictures that I have found for our class today. I have written down the name of the dishes as I found them. Um, so this is a horia tiki. It's a salad, probably with a feta or halloumi, cheese, capers, and a lot of Mediterranean vegetables and spices. Uh, for food illustration, obviously, I'm going for color. But there are some foods which have very little color. And Greece, I believe, is a heavily meat-eating country as well, but they do have interesting salads and dips and things like that, which are vegetarian. So I try to balance the two. Whenever you have a meat dish, look for a presentation with fruit and vegetables, or at least a wedge of lemon. That's good. So this is a souvlaki. Then we have spanakopita. Now this looks very much like a moussaka. So we need to make them look slightly different. Here's Lucumades. I have no idea how to pronounce these. I'm doing my best. These almost look like gulab jam, but they're made out of dough, I think. And this is just a baked feta, which is called a saganaki, which almost sounds like a Japanese dish. So I found some pictures which had just this slab of feta and nothing else on it. And then I found pictures with a little tomato basil or sugared baked figs. So look for interesting, what are these decorations called in cooking?
Garnish.
Garnishes, correct. Thank you. Right. So as we would normally do, I'm folding my paper in half so that this looks like a book illustration.
So it's like last times, no, Aditi?
Yeah,
Dividing it
exactly
into
like last time. We will make this on a folded page, but we will consider this as a like a double spread. So things can flow between them. But if you don't fold it, then you don't know where the half line lies. And then we tend to distribute stuff a little irresponsibly. But over here, when you fold the page, and I folded it till the perforation, not right up to the end, you get a sense of how the book will open up. And it's important to note this because when you're working with a book, some things have to work differently with books. Stuff that you have towards the spine isn't very visible. So it helps to compose your picture around the periphery and make your text towards the center where somebody will open it up and read it properly. So first things first, let's think about composition. And for this, in the back of this page itself, make a sketch with pencil to visualize what composition would look best. Make a couple of rectangles with a fold, like a dotted or dashed line that indicates the fold. The page is just a more or less proportion of what you see your double spread like. Even if you can't think of three ideas at the outset, make these three pages because you that way force yourself to think of different options. Now, since we have the spanakopita and the moussaka looking the same, they should not be next to each other. So let's say we will have the spanakopita here, the moussaka here. And try to make a silhouette of the dish itself. With a few lines. So you get to visualize how the page would look, how that item would look as well. Now, one thing is when you're making a page which is like a mix of a whole lot of stuff, you don't have to worry about matching perspective. You really don't need to keep that. You can bunch things up as you find convenient. And that will work brilliantly as well. So I'll show you a sample of how that will look. So on a page like this, I have one dish that I have shown from the top, several dishes from an angle, and the angle has changed in different places, and it doesn't matter how the page looks. So whichever dish you are making, make it the way you see it. If there are some dishes that you see better from the top, make them like that. But start your composition from the bottom and just make sure that everything balances out with each other. That's what the composition exercise is for. So now we have a nice big plate of a salad. You don't need to draw the whole plate. You can just draw part of it extending over here. Tilt your book so that you can see the reference image correctly and just illustrate part of that salad. You can just make some wiggly lines to indicate all the vegetables. Then you have the souvlaki, which again has got lines, the lines of the skewers. So those can be made either this way or at a different angle like this, perhaps, to focus on the meat part of it. And then you have the veggies. Then you have the locumades, which is just a heap of your dough balls on a base or not. The base is optional. And the last one is that dish with the feta saganaki, which you see from the top. All right, so this is the composition. Now, like I said, the illustration part we are going to do in about 5 or 10 minutes. So what I'm doing right now with you is helping you visualize things because we have time right now. This is the kind of homework that helps you make your travel illustrations faster when you are faced with making those illustrations. So none of this is included in the illustration of your food when you're traveling. Composition studies should be done separately. Right, now the next composition, just switch things around. Let's say we have all the plates on one side. You have this saganaki over here. Then you have the salad over here. What if you were to keep the moussaka and the spanakopita next to each other? You could draw the souvlaki without the plate or with a plate like this. And the last one is those dough balls like this. 6 items here, 6 items here. And for the last one, I'm not going to do this. I want you to do this exercise yourself and switch things around and see if you can come up with more options. So just take another 2-3 minutes for that. Hi, Prajakta. Okay, are you done? 2 minutes are up. Now, if you need to refer to your rough sketch, you can just tilt the page, turn the page and refer to it. But this is mainly just to visualize. Now, if you visualize it, you probably don't need to look at it constantly. So one strategy whenever you start illustrating is always start from the bottom of the page. Bottom of the page is the foreground. And if you need to overlap something, it's better that the objects at the bottom of the page overlap those objects which are further. It just helps to have a comfortable 3D perspective. However, having said that, it's perfectly fine if you make an object over here and then something else is overlapping over on top of this. It's fine for the in this case. But let's start off with part of the illustration which we've done over here. We've made the feta salad. What is it called? Horiyatiki and the souvlaki at the bottom. So let's make two of them first. So today I want to just make the illustrations with pencil, not use the pen. Using just pencil helps to keep the colors light. Oh, and that reminds me, if you've got color pencils, that'll work even better. So that you don't need to, the gray of this pencil also will not impede. Now we don't need to match the colors of the foods with the colors of the color pencil. You can use colors like these, blues, browns, oranges, to draw lots of stuff. And then when you paint it, many of these colors will just be hidden or blended, or they will act as shadows. So I prefer to not use green, but of course, green is also perfectly okay. I'm starting with this light blue color. Now, one instruction is avoid erasing. Imagine you are sitting with your family, your food has just been served, that salad has come, and you can just about buy 5 minutes to make this illustration. So looking at, I'm going to try this new thing, sharing the screen with you in which you see my drawing as well as the reference image. So you know what I'm looking at. I will be looking at this part of the image. And I'm just going to complete the top of this with some imaginary shapes. This line will also go a little rounder because it's a nice round oval plate. And maybe I'll take a few cues from how the vegetables are laid out at the bottom and complete the top. It's almost like a cut and paste. So first visualize, because you know there are other elements coming here as well. And start making your lines. My plate has gone past into the next page also because it's quite a large salad I want to show. The first thing to draw beyond the plate is that piece of cheese. And I'm shifting it slightly higher because that seems to be the hero of the dish. I've made a triangular shape, a little thickness on the left. If your triangle looks squarish, don't erase it, just make a square instead of a triangle. Avoid erasing. You will not imagine that you are not going to get a chance to do it over. Now I'm drawing the capers, which is just an oval with a few lines running across it, almost like a volleyball, tiny green volleyballs. And then I will draw crescent shapes like that for the tomatoes. Semicircles like these with a few odd shapes towards the center that will resemble the seeds. So I want you to see how casually the lines can be drawn. A couple of lines like these for the onions. For onion rings, it helps to draw the thickness. So imagine this is the thickness of the onion. Then you will have like a squarish section and the inside of the onion. So it almost looks like a three-dimensional pipe. And you can randomly distribute many of these objects all over and keep overlapping the shapes. Now this is an olive. I'm going to show you how to make an olive also. Make an oval shape. On any one end, make a C shape which curves inward towards the main body of the olive. And then inside that C, make another C shape. So that looks like a hollow, looks like a pitted olive. We'll make another one here, one more time. Make an oval shape. Make another C shape, bent or concaving or convexing towards the main body. And then a small hollow inside here. And the busier you make it, keep overlapping or underlapping, I would say. Now here the plate is far too empty, so I'm going to add a little bit of the other piece of cheese as well. Now this looks like a bell pepper, so I've drawn an odd shape with some thickness on all sides. Is everyone able to draw this? I know I'm going to speed you a little bit, but
Yes.
if you feel you
Yes.
have a problem, feel free to stop me. I don't mind stopping. Don't feel stressed about drawing this. It is supposed to be art. So if your hand is shaking and if you're feeling, oh my God, she's going really fast, don't. It's perfectly fine to stop, ask questions, and then move forward for the class. So for many of you, being able to draw free lines might be a problem. The I guess requirement often from ourselves is to make lines very precise. And sometimes in food illustration or travel illustration, or in illustration basically, the imperfections are what will make your picture look more endearing. So some crooked lines, some lines that go into each other, really messy lines also are okay. So now when we make travel illustration, it is, the purpose is very different from when travel illustration was done by adventurers. There they would have to draw pictures of the stuff that they saw, like Darwin did, or give exact accounts of the people they visited, like Marco Polo did. But for us, we don't have that need. So even if your pictures are reasonably representative, it's perfectly fine. Now look at color distribution. After you filled it up well enough, you will start seeing that maybe you put too many tomatoes in one section. In the other section, there are too many olives. There isn't enough balance. You want to show everything put together much more balanced than just tomato, 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 cucumber, 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 bell pepper, bell pepper, bell pepper, because in monocolor, you can't see anything. Okay, how far has everyone come? Can we move to the next one? The next one over here is the next picture, the souvlaki.
I had a question. If
Yeah.
there will be lettering when we're making the thumbnails, do we think about that at that time or just later wherever we find space we do like a heading or the name of the dishes?
Of course, you can do that as well. If you want to write Greek specialty or something like that, you can give a thought to lettering as well, because that is a component in your page. So in this case, we do have some space in the center. So I would probably write food of the gods or something like that. Any kind of pre-planning is always good. But we'll come to the lettering later also. So if you have an idea of where you want to put the letters, do it ahead of time, no doubt. All right, now that's souvlaki. Can we start the souvlaki? So here, part of the food is overlapping the plate. So here we won't draw the plate first. We will start drawing the food. And maybe I can draw this in orange. Meats are not really the most prettiest pictures to draw. So just draw silhouettes and some of the dark lines, and avoid making them too straight and the lines too regular or too similar. I'm going to tilt the second skewer a little to the left. Now, when I'm drawing these lines, I continue to look at the illustration, the reference image, because you don't want to just have similar lines coming out of the skewers. It does not look nice. And as much as people say that I can't even draw a straight line, beginners land up making a lot of their lines looking very similar, very predictable. So keep an eye on how the silhouette presents itself on the illustration. Going back to my blue for the tomatoes and the vegetables. You can make this in red if you want. You can also make this in green. We are going to be coloring everything in watercolor. Here the shape of the vegetables is quite nice. The cucumber has also been cut quite well. It's you make an oval shape and then you make a diagonal line on one side because the other side is not visible. And then you go and connect that. And also all the vegetables have been better organized. So you have all the olives in one section, tomatoes and cucumber in one section, and then there's some greens which you can just draw, probably dill or no, not dill, that looks like rocket. So just draw a few leaves sticking out. That should do it. And after this is done, we can now make the plate. And if your plate is being overlapped by the earlier plate, that's fine. If it's not perfectly round, even that is fine. There's a nice lemon, which I will bring to this side to balance things out. Okay, how is the illustration going for everyone? Do you have any problems or any issues? You're able to see the lines and replicate them?
Yes, ma'am.
Cool. Okay, great. All right, let's move on to the next one. Now, in this case, start from the top. You see how that silhouette is. I'm going to try and make this without a base because we don't have a plate here, right? So you're under no obligation to make plates where you don't see plates. So here we have a shape like this. This is just the top of that flaky pastry. Deliberately press the pencil a little harder so that I get a color going. And then the base is fairly flat and just a jumble of green and cream on the inside. So I've again made the outline. I'm going to paint it later on. Here, some of the top of the flaky pastry sticks out from underneath. Draw that. Visualize this rectangle or cube design. And literally just follow the line. Make a line up to a particular distance and see how far it continues, and then make the next line. There's really nothing to it. That's all there is. If you start seeing it as slices, then you'll try to draw slices. But if you start seeing it only for angles and lines and length of lines, then you won't be bothered with, is it is the stuffing soft? Is the top crusty? Or how am I going to show it shiny or whatnot? These are all just things in your head. Now, going back to your question, Janita, in each of these places, I'm looking at the possibility of writing text in different areas. I could probably write the name of this dish here, this dish here, this dish either here or even inside the plate. Why not? So you do keep all your considerations active.
My plate is also looking a little empty. What do I do about it? Like,
Okay, let me just check.
the spacing. I've got
Yeah.
too much space on this side. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible, yeah. Oh, how lovely, very nice. Just hold it a little higher. Why not add another wedge of lemon there? And maybe a couple of olives at the bottom. Cool. Now the moussaka. Moussaka can come here. Same thing with the moussaka. Now look at the line. You have a diamond shape on top. So draw that diamond shape. Now draw it at a size where you can visualize. See how the diamond shape, the height of the diamond is about the same height as the base. So don't start, since we are starting this item or object, not from the bottom up. Visualize how it is going to end before you take your action. These lines that you draw also, you can draw them a little incomplete. You don't have to make a complete outline. These are supposed to just be indicative. And from both sides, you just have a V shape. And then a layer. Now my V shape is becoming much bigger and it is going to be overlapped by the souvlaki. So I'm not going to resist that and try to finish my moussaka higher. Let it overlap. This is like an action consequence thing. I could have checked beforehand, but now that this is how it is, I have to lay in the bed that I have made for myself. Now here, if you want, you can create a texture with a contrasting color. In this case, with the blue pencil, so that you add a little texture in the under painting before the painting comes in. So you can draw little squiggles. You can draw a few circles to mimic the squishy filling of the moussaka. And we can also make these cute basil leaves. Here too, if you feel you want to, we can make a plate, which will be round, which will be like an oval. And give it a little bit of thickness towards the front. And to make it look round, just a little line like this so that we see a certain depth. Okay, so far so good. And now the last two items. Now, when we are drawing this lukumades also, draw the ball that you see towards the front and completely unencumbered by the rest. So that could be this one or the one on top. And then draw the ones behind. And try to look for a shape that you can see being completed or visualize being completed. Don't draw a ball that's this tiny or something that will look unnatural. In the event that something does happen and the balls do look unnatural, forget it. Not a big deal. And this honey ladle is quite a cute thing. I love to draw them. So, like they have made a very modest newspaper base. You can make that base. I suppose this is how you might find jalebi being sold in some places in the country. So the newspaper also can make for a very interesting um, addition to how your page looks. And the honey ladle can be made like so. Just make a circle and 2 lines for the handle. And then at the end of the line, you make another oval shape. Give it some thickness and keep doing this. Small thickness, fatter thickness. That should do. And now the last bit. This one, you can first make the what would this be? It's a griddle, or what is it called? It's a very lovely container. Now here's where my stuff is overlapping in a most unscientific manner. Obviously, this honey ladle looks like it is flat on a surface, and my pan has gone below that. So that's okay. Now, when you're drawing the cheese, make sure that you don't make the corners too sharp, the edges too straight. This is a feta cheese which is cooked on the in this very hot pan. So it is not going to retain its shape. As it is with feta, even when you want to put it in a salad, the moment you start handling it, it crumbles. It's very weak. So to make it look convincing like uh, the object that it is, your lines can be the, I guess, they can reveal what the texture, the hardness or softness of your object would be. So just pay attention to these things. There is a little melting on the left also. So in half an hour, we have drawn all these items. By now, I'm sure everyone in your family would have left and gone to another table so that they can eat. But broken down, I think we have taken just about 5 to 7 minutes to make the first sketch. And this is what you can do to about 2, 3 items, click a picture, and then continue with the painting afterwards. So you can also do lettering over here. You can say food from Greece or whatever at this point, because you could do that while you're munching on your food. And in itself, this can also look like a completed picture. So when I was doing travel sketching with my students, in order to be very brief with my food illustration and to demonstrate how they should do it, these are the kinds of illustrations we did. When everyone's beverages came, we just made quick illustrations in pen, no color, no nothing. Just draw a few garnishes, draw the glass, and write the name of the restaurant we were in. Then, yeah, at lunch, quick sketch, But with beverages, you sometimes get more time, so you can paint. But even this can look pretty good. So you could go away with even something like this, and this suffices. Right, now for painting, we first start off with the shadows. So create a gray shade using black, burnt umber, and uh, ultramarine blue. I already have some black and some yellow ochre. It doesn't matter. So black with any other color, save green. I don't use green in my shadows, but any other color, even if it is a red, tends to just give you either a warm or a cool gray shade, which is multicolored. I prefer to use shades like these for shadows because they're not, they're a little livelier.
Aditi, can you please repeat the color mix?
Yes, it's black, ultramarine blue,
Green? Okay.
and burnt umber.
Okay. Thank you.
And keep it very liquid, much more liquid than even washes. And don't use too much paint because we just barely need this. It's only to tint the paper with that shade. We are going to use this color to put a little shadow or shadow area as a base coat on all the plates, underneath all the food, maybe sometimes in the middle of the food also. So in this case, rotate the book and add the shadow with a pressed brush. So keep your brush pressed down and add this shadow. If you've made this the right consistency, you won't see too much of it. And watercolor will anyway dry and become lighter. So when you see a stiff line like so, it could be just the shadow of the food. So that works. And in other places, like just underneath some of the food that is overlapping other foods, it helps to crowd up the space without adding other elements. And keeping the negative space colored. If your negative space remains white, it attracts unnecessary attention and makes your picture look very empty. Yeah, someone had a question?
Yeah, Aditya, I can't see your page.
Oh, 1 minute.
Yeah, there were two little two
Yeah,
of
it's
your
very
pages.
Do you
So
see it now?
I can see two. So, now
Yeah.
I can see a big one.
Now we
Otherwise,
can
I was
see.
seeing small ones. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Aditya.
Okay.
Aditi, we need to fill up the entire, all the negative space, right? Even in the middle.
Yes, if you can, definitely. Not this, not this.
No, no, of course. The illustration.
Yeah, yes, because that is how the reference image looks. You can also fill it up in color afterwards. Now, in this case, please keep a rag handy, huh? Because you might need to remove some color or just dab quickly in on your rag. You don't have to paint now in the sequence that we have drawn. And I would recommend to now paint from the top. So just a little shade even underneath these tomatoes on top. Then a little shadow on the left of these dough balls. This color is very light, mind you. So don't be too worried. The entire left side of this moussaka can be colored. And you can put in a little bit of color on the plate as well. If you're unsure about the color, first make a small patch in rough. You can make it in the back. Wait till the color dries and then see how dark it looks. If it is looking dark, then add a little water, make it very runny, and then try it again. Unless you are 100% sure about your color, don't add it onto your painting.
Aditi, could you also explain how you figure out where the shadows are, like to make it?
Yes. Let me show you. So in the reference image, I'll just share the reference image and I'll show you what to look for. Now in this picture, you might notice that we have some highlights where the light falls, like over here. These are going to all be the lighter tones. On the opposite side of the lighter tones will be shadows like these. Without the shadows, the light tones will not be seen or appreciated. Now in the olives also, see the highlight is towards the top left and the shadow is exactly on the opposite side. So in this case, we will make the shadows. You can already see them over here, right? These.
Yeah.
So, sorry, that would be the red arrow. Other than that, because this particular dish is also a stacked meat dish, you will see shadows between these pieces of meat as well and towards the left edge. So you will make that as well. Plus, there is a depth to this plate, so there will be a shadow over here as well. Though it seems like it is on the top left of the picture, it is on the opposite side of where the light hits. So you will see that shadow there, but you will see because the plate is like a dip, the highlight of the plate is over here. Can you see it?
Yeah.
That's how you can figure out the light and shadow.
Okay.
Okay, now let me show you another picture maybe. In this case, can you see how the highlight is from the right side now? The right side looks lighter. On the top, you can't really tell, except when you see the shadows on the leaves, which are on the left side. So it's a very small thing, but you can start sensing it. Does that help?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Tell me again if you feel you still can't figure out, I'll help you out.
Okay.
Okay, so here now that we've established that the highlight is there, I'm making the plate dark in this case, not putting too much color on the lemon, just around it. In between the two skewers. Yeah, Isha, you have a question?
The shadow color is the same for all the dishes, right?
Right now, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
As we proceed, we will keep changing the color because after this point, we will start adding the color of the dish itself.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
So sometimes I make these shadows even in a blue color, just a plain cerulean blue. Like, let me demonstrate. You don't have to do it now, but let me demonstrate and you'll see that it really won't matter. So though this item is a reddish color, I can make a blue shadow like this. And this will still make the object look three-dimensional. And the shadow will look like a shadow, not like a blue line. So you can choose practically any color to create that depth. Okay. Now, while we are waiting for these washes to dry, you can think about what kind of text you want to put over here. So, does anyone know what a Greek meal is called? Is there a special name? I've not done research about that. Let me just find out quickly. Mhm. Oh my God, this is getting even more. I wish we had somebody who understood Greek.
Can we use something with like Mediterranean, to add that word? Because
We could. It's just a huge word. Okay.
okay.
Greek cuisine, Aditi, to be
Huh.
making it simple Greek cuisine or something. I don't know.
Okay. What is there is something called I don't know whether it's a Roman thing. Like, what does the word manna come from? Manna from heaven. Is that a Greek concept?
No, it's an Old Testament concept. So obviously Hebrew.
Oh, right. Okay, fine. No problem. All right, we'll come to that. So maybe we can just call it um, Greek food. Sounds very boring. Let's just say when in Greece, because at least it's something, and put a dot after that and make it a little more interesting. So our term is when in Greece. Obviously, the Greece has to be bigger than the when in. So in this case, we can again use our tape. So those of you who have a tape like this, you can take your what is this called? I keep forgetting words now. Washi tape or paper tape, or if you don't have a tape, just use any rough paper you have and use that as a base. Check that your baseline is completely parallel to the base of your book. And then on this paper itself, you can give yourself the space that you need to write the word Greece. And this space you can then divide into several parts. So you divide it into two parts. So the first GRE will be written on the left half and ECE will be written on the right half. If you're still not sure, then divide this just visually into 6 parts like this. So I'm going to do that over here. This is where I'm going to write my Greece in this much space. Visually divide it into half, then divide it into blocks of equal blocks, 3 equal blocks. And in this, I'm going to write GREECE. Now, the advantage of writing it on a paper like that is if I'm unhappy with the positioning, I can move it a little to the left, little to the right, so that I match it. Now, I'm going to make this rather big. That's why I've given a lot of space between the letters. You can also put another tape on top, which of course I happen to have. These tapes are really good. You can keep reusing them at least 3-4 times. And one of the best things is if you want to make an even creative lettering style, you can easily change the guidelines to something like this, where you might want to write a small g and have the letters come up in a very dramatic fashion. So just by using tape, you can eliminate the need to use pencil and mark those awful guidelines. Okay, so I'm writing the word Greece in a double letter. So here it might be useful to lightly write the letter first and then make it a double letter or a block letter. And the second option is you need not write Greece like in conventional English. You can also convert the letters to make them look more Greek. So now my G unfortunately is gone, but I can always write the other letters like this.
Could you show the G on the tape?
Yeah, G would be like this. Now, only because my G is rounded, I'm going to make my C rounded. Otherwise, the poor fellow will feel very lost. So the spacing for lettering is quite important. Give enough space from all sides and keep checking whether your space is visually all right. So if I were to continue to keep my tape here and write when in Greece, my letters when in would come closer to the food than the word Greece. So I will bring it lower. And here I could write the same letters, but without a double line. Or we could also written it's all Greek to me. That might have been a good line as well. Okay, shall we start the main painting now? Everything is dried? Let's start with this. The one that we finished last, we'll start with first. So we will do at least 2 layers of colors on all the pictures. The first layer is going to be slightly brighter and slightly fainter than you might imagine. When you paint the color though, it will go on very bright, but as it dries up, it might look a little dull. You have to resist the temptation of painting while your first application is still wet. So the colors on you can see it fairly clearly on the reference image. These colors are a nice bright yellowish orange color. Now we can move to a medium size brush. So you either use a 6 or 6 number is pretty good. And hydrate these 3 colors: gamboge, orange and a little bit of yellow ochre, which we'll add to the edges. We might also feel the need to add a little burnt umber, but we'll get to that if need be. Now, burnt umber looks or goes on much lighter than you see it over here. This is not the true shade. When it goes onto paper, it looks a lot lighter, much redder than its appearance in the palette. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to start painting the base in such a way that we leave a few sections unpainted. So we are painting it with our brush going in a wiggly fashion. In the same time as we paint the base, we are also going to paint the tomatoes. And those tomatoes we are going to paint with like a swish of the color. So I'll start with the tomatoes first. They'll all have a highlight. So this is the outside. Now this is our base coat. And though the tomato on the bottom over here looks like it is facing the opposite direction of light, I will still put a highlight on that. Now using the same color, which is just gamboge. Start painting from the edges. And as you come inside, start making a pattern with a wiggly line. The edges will always seem to always cook better than the center. So you'll have almost like a hole-like texture, but not on the edges. Now I'm literally dragging my brush across. And all your previous shades and shadows will be covered, but they will all emerge afterwards. While the paint is still wet, you can take a little bit of orange and merge the two, make a wet on wet application of this new color. Now, the reason we've changed our brush is because we need a very small quantity of paint now, so that we can maintain the amount of or the area that we want to paint. If we had used a big brush for this, unless you're comfortable with or you know instinctively how much paint you have, you would land up depositing far too much paint in these areas. Now I'm reinforcing the shadow by adding a deep color behind these tomatoes as well. While this is drying, I'm making a mix of gamboge and orange and painting a base on the lucumades with a highlight on the right. We can do this with a big brush also. To make the highlight, you can press the brush down towards the highlight side. So this is how I would do it. The dark edge comes on the left. And wherever you press, there will automatically be a light edge on the inside part. Now feel free to add a deeper shade in some cases while the paint is still wet. And don't be worried about your color running outside like is happening over here. Do this now while the colors are still wet. In a few places, I'm adding burnt sienna. That's this color here. So there's a very natural merge of colors. If you feel that there is too much paint on, or this one is not even colored, you can wipe your brush and just run the brush along the edge of the highlight to soften it a little bit. But don't go over and over the paint again. So the reason why I'm moving much faster than usual is because I don't want you to dwell too much on your painting. We can do this a lot more fatafat. Now these two things we can paint together. The moussaka and the spanakopita, I think. Yeah. Because they have almost the same colors as this with a little bit of yellow ochre in the gamboge. And barring a few highlights, you can paint the entire top of both. So keep a few sections just unpainted very randomly. Use the same color for the bottom as well. Though you see very little bit of it, don't change the color here. And then just with a wet brush, the same brush that you used for the color on the top, drag that same color into the bottom. And keep it very loosey-goosey. Here I'm adding burnt umber and in some cases orange, wet on wet. And dragging the brush a little to the corners where it is still a little dry so that that color sticks over there. Here now we can add burnt umber to the edges while it's still wet. Now these things are very important to do while the color is still wet, the base coat is still wet. Because if we do this later on, there's a chance that it won't look like it's a nicely baked item. To draw the remaining layers, take a little bit of burnt umber, take it in your brush, but wipe away the excess and use the leftovers to color. So you don't take the whole thing. And you can spread it inside the body of the food as well. Now here the treatment is slightly different. This is like a beige colored cheese. It's not wholly white. So don't do this. I'm just going to show this to you because you might just make it fully gray in color. Remember that first shadow that we done? I'm added a little yellow ochre to that to make it like a warm gray. And that's the color I'm using on top over here. But ever so slightly, you won't even be able to see it. And just in a few places so that it does not look white. But there's so much color coming around it that you don't need to do it. If you're not sure of the color, don't bother with this. But this is how you can make a light cream beige color with black and black and yellow ochre. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes here because I need to go and drink some water. Okay, now in the interest of saving time but completing at least one thing properly, can I help you finish at least a few items over here so that then you can try and attempt the remaining? Because otherwise we will leave everything. We have just another 10 minutes to go and everything will be just one layer done. Now, if you can't finish it, next class also, I can help you finish it. But at least for now, let's give it a shot. So let's go back to the um, the feta over here. Now, at this stage, we can start adding some details. So using a thin brush, like number 4, we can start adding the colors of the tomato and the basil. So I use a mix of orange and scarlet for the tomato. And make some room in your palette, or if you have an additional palette, like today I just happen to have one, mix the color and see what shade you make. Avoid painting directly from the cake until you are 100% sure you know what color is going to come out of it, or you know what to do if you get the wrong color coming out of it. So we have to paint this shade in two consistencies. One is the consistency of the inside of the tomato, which is the same color but much lighter. So you have a little watery sample of the same color, and you'll paint that on the inside of, or what you have drawn as the inside of the tomato. Just make a quick swish of that color. That should suffice. And then you can use, even while these are wet, you can use the thicker paint to draw in some of that paint into the skin. And to make it even more believable, as you pull this further down, remove the excess paint and add in a deeper color like light red or burnt sienna. So you get a more convincing tomato. I'm going to be doing this 3 more times. So you make the outline. Wherever you have the highlight, you will put a more concentrated color of that orange and scarlet. Now, the composition of orange and scarlet is different. It's not 50-50. There will obviously be more scarlet than crimson. Sorry, than orange. And at this point now, part of my color is running into the flesh, which will make it look more believable. And on the bottom edge of this tomato, I will use either burnt sienna, burnt umber, light red, and pull the color down so that I get this shadow. Now, if you don't have space for this kind of elaborate shadow making and all, don't do it. It's not a rule that it has to be done everywhere. Even if you do it in a few places, our brains are very, very good at recognizing what we're trying to say. Part of the reason why we enjoy art so much is that our brains are equipped for this kind of analysis. There, it's looking nice and plump. Now, at this point, we have a choice whether or not to color the plate behind it. I'm going to color it. This is just yeah, the best application for this would be to use a cobalt blue and a black mixture. But I want you to see how I do this. So I'll use the cobalt blue. Okay, first thing is when you're painting with watercolor, there's never just a single color that you dip into. Often you will have cobalt blue and black available for your brush to dip into. So watercolor painting is like, it's a very fickle manner of painting. Just because you say that one thing is one color does not mean that's the only color you'll end up using. So in the process of painting this, right now I'm just using cobalt blue. I am going to leave a few sections unpainted where I see a highlight, which is that on the left. I'm not painting the entire edge. And also a part of this, the rim at the base. And even part of the base where there is a highlight. So we are basically just creating an illusion, a convincing illusion that something is what we say it is. So a ring on that base where you probably have a little bit of the oil come and collect. And now at this point, I may just add black to this blue, deepen the color as we go. In any art, when you are translating a photograph into an illustration, you can change a lot of things, especially when you're making things like objects. If your color scheme on the page does not support black, don't make black. Sometimes you can extend this even to portraiture. Now, even in this handle, you'll notice that towards the base on the left handle, it's darker. And a little bit on the top is light. So in this case, you pull the color. You don't take fresh color. You just pull it from where you have applied the first color. So automatically you get a very nice seamless merge or blend from a dark to light. And on this handle, it's slightly different where you can pull from both sides. So you apply some on this side, apply some on the other side, where this color has gone and sat fresh. And then with a light, a slightly damp brush, you just merge the two. And then you can use a black to drop in that nice dark edge. So the trick is to keep your hand very light. Don't make your illustration too heavy. Don't go over and over painting it. Make one stroke, see what impact it has. Make the next stroke in another place. Come back to the first place. Add a second stroke. See what impact that has. So you keep moving from one to the other. Now for the basil, I'm just using sap green. And again, I'm not painting the whole leaf, and I'm not painting just the leaf. I'm going to make a few strokes outside of the expected area. This is, of course, a green leaf, so I'll make that. But here again, I will add a little extra color in a few places. I'll make a few leaf shapes on the side where I've not even drawn them. And you can put a little bit of cobalt blue even over here to add depth. And some shadow. Now you can see that the initial shadow we made is looking very light underneath the tomatoes. So I'm going to sweep a shadow. You don't have to do this. I want you to just see this. Sweep a shadow using burnt umber just at the base of these tomatoes. Making that contrast makes all the difference in the picture. Now we have a little black on this side. All right, so we're already at 104. I'll give you some tips on how you can write the names of the different food. I'm gonna encourage you to try finishing painting at least these four and attempting the remaining. Give me an idea of whether you're managing it or not. If not, then we can paint this in class again, or at least I can try or I can give you tips on on what might have gone wrong. Actually, just give it a shot, just paint it. We've done most of the stuff. You know how to paint shiny vegetables. We have all shiny vegetables here. For olives, you can use, I can tell you the colors right now. You can use a combination of This is crimson and burnt umber. So here is crimson, burnt umber, and maybe a little bit of black, or let's try cobalt blue. So this makes a nice olive color. So all these olives over here can first have, like we did the tomato, you put in a light shade first. Look at the reference image. Put that highlight in. And then afterwards, you can come back and paint it a little darker. So this is what both the olives are going to look like. If you want to make them slightly redder, like a Kalamata olive, you can add a little more burnt umber to that, and that will change that olive color to a slightly reddish brown color. The meats on the skewer are going to look very much like the top of the seared cheese. The filling over here and here is going to look pretty much the same, only the colors are going to differ. But maybe I can show you the filling on the moussaka. And then you can replicate that over here. Start with what you see as the lightest color. So in this case, it's a mix of some yellow ochre with some green. And literally, I will start filling it like I did the cheese, the feta cheese, leaving a few sections unpainted. We need to make it look edible. So don't paint the whole thing dark. We need to have some highlights on even the filling. So this is just a yellow ochre with sap green and a little bit of black or a dark blue. Anything is fine. You will come to this color. Now you can wait for a little while in some places where the color needs to dry, but in other places you can continue to add a deeper green, like add more blue to this same shade and add that. Maintain the edge. Then you have burnt umber. You can see a little bit of that. Literally, trust your eyes. Just put a few drops of that. Then you can wait and see what the effect looks like. You are allowed to make multiple layers. So use that opportunity well. And distribute the colors unevenly everywhere. Don't make everything too even. So if you put one dark color here, that'll be like a shadow. Don't put it immediately like a pattern. The basil on top will be pretty much like the basil over here. Now, the main bit where I've seen a lot of people make mistakes is in the writing of the name of the dish. Please don't write it too close to the plate or the edge of the plate. You can write it inside the plate, but not on the plate. Try to have nothing come in the way of your lettering. So if I want to write this now, it's feta saganaki. I can write it along the edge over here. But there is so much room. So I don't have to write it touching the line. That totally destroys your picture. So I'm leave maybe 2 or 3 millimeters and first count FETA space SAGANAKI. Use a little bit of time to make sure that you're not writing things too close or also too small or too regular. Make your handwriting slightly different from your regular handwriting. And do not write these letters the same way you have written the title. Keep these letters simple. So this is called captioning. Every photo can have a caption, but the caption should not compete with the title. Just because we've written one name along the edge of its dish doesn't mean everything has to be written like that. Now over here, we don't have space. So you're not compelled to write the name along an edge that doesn't, firstly, it's impeded. Here it's in the opposite direction. You could write it like that if you want, but you could just write it straight also. That is not a problem. You could write this straight, you could write this straight because there isn't any room to write Musaka either. You could write Musaka like this and this one over here. So avoid writing anything that makes you turn your head more than just a tilt. If I write Lokumadis, it might still work. Let's see. But this is a bum. No, I'm feeling uncomfortable. Okay, let me wait. Musaka. Moussaka. I think I can start from here. This S is going to be overlapped by the food. That's fine. And I think the moussaka needs more red. So I'll add that. This is spanakopita. So here we have no plate, but I can create a visual circle. Just at the base. Which looks like a plate. Here we have lots of space, but just because we have lots of space does not mean we use it all up. This fellow hardly has any place. So we'll write it in the plate. But it's still written in a way that the food is not coming into it. It is not coming too close to the food. It's away from the other plates. Letters need to have their own space as far as possible.
Aditi, could you show us how to paint the cucumber?
Yes, yes. The cucumber color can be this same thing. You can use a sap green and yellow ochre for the inside. And sap green and a little bit of lemon and a little yellow ochre for the outside. Because the sapgreen is too green, it needs to be lightened to make it more cucumber-like. All right, this is the outside with the highlight, and the inside can be dragged in. So you make the outline, wipe your brush, and then pull the color in. There is another one. So let's say this one. I'll make 2 patches here because I want this highlight. And then the inside will be that slightly warmer green, and with a damp brush, I'll pull that in. Leave the highlight on the cucumber if you can. And if you want to make this deeper, if you want to put a shadow or shade to that, you can mix a cobalt blue to the same color and drop that in. So even though this is quick painting, this is as good as you can get. If you have 5 hours per item, you can go into many more details. So when we do our food illustration, there we will try to put in that kind of time and make everything look very, very realistic. Okay, any questions? Any more? Any other items? Okay, let's see. Janita, I'm spotting yours. Nice. Wait, let me just evaluate it again. Good. Okay, okay. The gray is a little too gray. Can you hold it a little behind? And a little higher. Nice, but very good. Okay, how about others?
Mine isn't really, nothing is complete yet, Aditi. My blue
Okay.
plate isn't very good, not a good shape, but it's, I mean, everything is just coming along slowly, slowly.
Okay, okay, this is
Blue
good.
plate is very pathetic.
That's okay.
I should just wait for you to finish, then I know what you're leaving out.
Okay. That helps actually.
It's only after you finish that I realize, that's why the white looked like the white there. I
Ah,
left the white, but in the wrong places.
nice. Okay, Anju's is also looking good. That's nice. Okay, let's see. Sonam's looking good. Okay. Nice. Cool.
I still haven't got the tomatoes right.
All right. So
That was a little bit difficult.
do
The
it
glaze.
a little, maybe what you can try for the salad is make the tomatoes slower. I was deliberately going fast because I didn't want you to go over and over the same area again and again. Most people land up doing that you will, if you're making the cheese on top, you'll just keep in that area for 20 minutes. If you painted one layer, you're not sure, you'll paint another layer while it's still wet, and that makes your color very muddy. But when you're making the painting for the tomato now, wait. So don't overwork it, but wait between layers. See how that layer is drying, and only after it dries, try painting the top and see what effect that gives you. Then over time, you will become familiar with how that effect is done. So you become comfortable with making the inside flesh tint and the outside with the highlight and the shadow. Then you can combine the two like I did right now. Make the flesh inside, and while it is just still damp, you make the skin outside. So you start becoming comfortable with one end and the other, and then the two come together, and you can still work with a little wet on wet or wet on damp to the best.
Could you, if you don't mind, like, can you show one tomato on the salad or somewhere? So for
Yeah.
practice, yeah.
Yeah, I'll show you that. Yeah, so this time now everyone can just observe. Don't do this, just observe. The colors I chose over here were orange and scarlet. And this is the shade I got for the flesh, orange and scarlet. And this is a tomato. So I'm painting the inside flesh by pressing the brush down. I'm ignoring the seeds and all. I'm not going to avoid the seeds. So what I'm asking you to do is paint this part and wait. Now don't go over and over and over it again. Then take the same shade, but this time it is thicker. So you have thicker paint, orange and scarlet. Definitely more scarlet than orange. The orange merely brightens up the color even more. This has now dried. It is still maybe just a little damp, but not as damp as I had left it up, on the feta. Now very carefully mark the outline of the tomato. Leave a little highlights, just an oval space, and paint the rest. We'll do the same thing on the other side. I think this might have not been a tomato. This might have been a cucumber, but it's okay. I'm leaving a highlight over here as well. Now this will look fairly flat unless we add a little bit of a dark color somewhere. And that dark color can be a burnt umber or a burnt sienna or a combination of the two, or even light red. It can be any of these because in every place you will have a different intensity to the shadow on every bit of tomato. So in some places you can put a burnt umber like that at the base. You could run it on both sides or just run it on one side like that. And that should do this. So once you've painted all these, if you want to intensify the flesh part of the tomato, you can do a second layer with this also, where you can deliberately make those segments around the seeds, almost like the lemon wedges. But don't make them too sharp. And this will dry to look more like a tomato. Okay, so try it out. Don't drag your paint. Keep your painting light, and don't be afraid of layering. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so sometime today or tomorrow, I'm going to finish this whole thing. and hopefully you all will also finish it. Just give yourself no more than 1 hour to finish everything else. Put on a timer and say, I have to just do this in 1 hour and finish it off. If you have a problem, click a picture and put it on the group. Say, I'm trying to paint this plate or this so-and-so thing, this filling. Here's where I'm stuck. I should be mostly available to answer the question. So at least I can give you tips on what colors to use. So
Some
that you can
papers, onions, and if you just share the shades, that'll help me
Shades?
in the group.
No, you will figure it out.
Okay.
By now, you should figure it out. The colors are there. I mean, just take a few colors, put them on a rough sheet and see
Yeah,
what
done.
it looks like. And with onions, you can you can paint them green, you can paint them red, you can paint them purple. Say for blue, I think you can paint any color. And even if you do paint it blue, it can easily be construed as a white onion. So don't wait for that.
I think the palest pinks or something, a little bit.
Yeah, all sorts of colors.
Palest. Yeah.
Okay, so
My
keep
vegetables are all too small, and my
Okay.
plate is going to look dreadfully empty, and my shadows are a big problem because they dry with an edge. And you know, this I always, the lighter, the thinner the paint, the more problem I have with it. So I'm going to redo that whole plate. It's not good.
no. So don't do that, Elaine. I think you first paint everything on the
Vegetables.
plate.
Okay.
Yeah, then take a call. The reason
Okay.
being, right now you think your shadows are looking too stark because there's nothing. The moment you put in some colors, they will start attracting more attention, and that sharp line of the shadow might not make a
I
difference.
don't. Let's see. Okay.
Yeah, and we won't know until you finish the plate.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
do it and then you know what to do the next time round.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Thank you.
I'll see you next
Bye.
week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aditi.
Bye.